If you have not seen the Abandoned by Disney series yet, the whole thing is available on my channel, playlist linked in description. I want to state before we start, Abandoned by Disney is a fictional story. Nothing within the series is real. Only a few things are based off of real things, such as the nightclubs and secret access doors used by the staff as described in Room Zero. The paranormal aspects of these stories are purely fictional, as far as we know. That's a joke. Probably. Abandoned by Disney is one of those once-in-a-generation type stories, a stroke of originality that few get. This is another one of those tales, like Mr. Widemouth, that I don't really have anything I dislike about it, not anything of major consequence anyways. While many like the original story, and others prefer Room Zero, I personally feel Corruptus is the better story, but that's just my opinion. Mostly because it establishes the grandiose scale of paranormal phenomena, and as you might know by now, by the stories I narrate and the ones I write myself, I'm a sucker for implication stories. That, and it has that finality feel to it. The main character has come to terms with the inevitability that lays in front of him. I will be giving only the most briefest summaries of each entry before going in depth. There are 4 stories, 3 of which are decently sized themselves. We'll go through them in the order they were posted. Abandoned by Disney. Our main character talks about various abandoned Disney resorts, how they affected the local population, and the subsequent abandonment of the theme parks. Then they talk about how someone did some urban exploration of one of the resorts, which inspires the MC to do the same at a somewhat local theme park, Mowgli's Palace. After finally getting some equipment and the time to do it, the main character arrives at the disheveled theme park. He explores the squalor and attempts to find interesting things. Most of what he finds isn't noteworthy, not until he discovers the mascot room. After breaking the lock, he goes in and finds a similarly run-down area, much like the rest of the place. However, there are old mascot suits, which the character discovers have human remains in them. It's shortly after this that a previously discovered Mickey Mouse costume, with inverted colors, comes to life. The Mickey Mouse costume having a strange effect on the main character's camera. The digital viewfinder showing only a black silhouette where the figure should be. The figure speaks to him, and after his camera dies, the main character flees the area. Room Zero. The main character continues the story by giving us insights into the lesser-known stuff about Disney, much of this information being provided to him by those who came forward after reading his account of Mowgli's Palace. One of the stories stands out as recounted by a construction worker who directly mails the main character about a site he was working on. The worker discovers a large rectangular area that is marked as a no-dig zone. After investigating it, he discovers a large steel door and nothing but solid concrete beyond it. The construction worker begins asking around about it. An old woman who worked at Disney recounts her experience with the place she identifies as Room Zero. The room was constructed during the Cold War as a bomb shelter, fully stocked and able to accommodate the entire guest population. At some point after its construction during the Cold War, the air raid sirens sounded off, prompting the staff and guests to flee down to Room Zero. Once inside, after the lights died, absolute chaos breaks out. Only a few staffers and guests are able to escape. After realizing there is no bomb raid happening, they cautiously make their way back down to Room Zero. However, the whole place is now quiet. No more screaming. No more commotion. The woman recounting the tale states that she alone approached the door leading to the room, and only a single voice came out, telling her to shut the door, to which she does. It is later discovered by the narrator that the old woman died soon after telling her story to the construction worker, alluding that Disney themselves silenced her to cover up what happened. A few suggestions. This is the shortest of all 4 stories. It presumably takes place sometime before the first Abandoned by Disney story, at a point when the Mowgli's Palace resort was still operational. It's told from the perspective of suggestion cards. The suggestions go from typical workplace requests to the more bizarre, specifically from one card submitter. This person progressively becomes more deranged as the cards continue. Given some of the later lines within the cards, it's speculated that the crazy person becomes the Mickey Mouse creature, which is seen at the end of Abandoned by Disney. Corruptus. This is my favorite out of the 4. I like the big picture view it takes and the implications of the paranormal events. The narrator details that his life has been made difficult by Disney. They seem to be keeping tabs on him due to his whistleblowing. Someone is able to get an email to him before his connection is cut. A list of anomalies documented by the Disney Corporation. There are multiple Corruptus entities, 2 of which are the creatures from Abandoned by Disney and Room Zero. The photo-negative Mickey costume is called Inverted Character, while the Room Zero entity remains as unknown. This is when the narrator speculates that these Corruptus entities are corrupted reality, idols that humans directed their ideals, dreams, and desires to, so much so that it warped reality to create these paracasual events. Now for the in-depth look. One thing that Slimebeast did that even allowed this series to happen was that he left a lot of unanswered questions in Abandoned by Disney, which allowed him to expand upon the ideas in further entries. To any series writer, proportion the information you expose in the earlier parts. That way later entries can have their own information exposure and a decent amount of impact. Abandoned by Disney, the first story, doesn't set the bar too high in terms of antagonist scale. Because of this, Room Zero had a lot of space to work with when it came to severity of the creature. Where ABD was limited to just the narrator and several employees before the events of the first story, Room Zero affected possibly a few hundred people. A few suggestions was a good fork in the series. Normally, I don't like prequels, but when they help expand upon an event we don't have the full picture to, it can keep it interesting. A few suggestions, however, maintains that air of mystery, only providing a bit more context to Abandoned by Disney. I'm going to focus on the obvious here, the paranormal creatures. While Slimebeast offered a decent concept of what the entities are, I want to expand upon it. We'll start with the inverted Mickey. Given the plot of A Few Suggestions, we see this person who works as a mascot starting to go crazy. They at first complain about sores within the suit, then they claim the suit is becoming difficult to remove. One employee notes that at least one of the mascot suits is filled with vomit. Later, the mascot employee says that the suit has started breathing, and if they don't match it, they can't breathe. Here's my idea of this. The emotions that Mickey sparks in children, the wonder and excitement that the character brings, their mental energy was directed towards the person wearing the suit, and whether due to an already unstable mind or the paracasual rules of the ABD universe, the person inside the suit was being mutated or transformed. Possibly believing themselves, or because the kids believe them to be the real Mickey, the reality warping effects began to make them what they or the children saw them as. As for the inversion of the mascot colors, this is possibly due to the person's insanity corrupting the image of Mickey, or the common distaste for the company that many Disney employees have, making it a malevolent mutation. The narrator suggests that the ill thoughts towards Mowgli's palace by the local population, being heavily inconvenienced by its construction, is also what might have focused some mental energy to transforming the Mickey costume wearer. The camera of the narrator having blank pixels where the Mickey was on the viewfinder, of course, can be explained by the idea that the creature is defying reality, so the camera would not detect it with its sensor. Next is what was in Room Zero. The original event that caused everyone to go into Room Zero, a false bomb raid, of course caused heightened fear and anxiety, and a lot of it. Either someone down there was expedited into a creature, or it was an entity created on its own from the intense emotional state of all the guests and staffers. It's presumed that whatever was in Room Zero killed everyone that stayed in there, which would explain the extreme measures taken to contain the creature. Due to the ambiguous nature of the Room Zero entity, there isn't much I can analyze, only offer a few possible explanations that stay in line with the ideas set up by the story. The Corruptus entities seem to be the results of heightened emotions and directed mental energy, the kind amusement parks bring out in children, especially Disney, since they've all seen the wonder and magic in the shows. Therefore, their imaginations run wild and are projected and focused on specific things, like the mascots or other attractions as listed in Corruptus. It's possible some are pure thought forms that are created out of nothing, rather than basing themselves off an already existing thing, animal or person. Such as with Room Zero Corruptus, if it wasn't someone who was transformed into the creature, it could have possibly formed out of pure mental energy from all the guests and staffers in Room Zero. The idea that the narrator offers for some of the Corruptus entities is that they are golden calves, idols for people to view as gods, to worship. But through this, either due to natural human corruption, purposely evil intentions, distaste for the company, or that it is naturally evil since it itself is corruption of reality, this process creates these malevolent entities. A few last notes and some short ideas and concepts that I thought of while writing this. The faceless kids mentioned in a few suggestions might be kids from Room Zero. My theory for this is that due to all the gas masks down there, maybe the kids wore them, and that represents that they're faceless, or that possibly the creature from Room Zero took their faces off or something. This is purely speculation on my part, and has no confirmation. I also don't know if Slime Beast plan to do another story and explain them or not, but I don't really mind if they never get explained. It's speculated that there were more stories Slime Beast was going to write, given that certain elements like the faceless children were never elaborated on. However, I don't know how true this is, but I'm of the opinion that where it ends is a good spot. It would run the risk of becoming stale and overblown for the sake of one-upping itself. I will always prefer an incomplete and good mystery over one that has a forced ending that ruins the ideas. Of course, it could be ended decently, but we may never know. So let's boil this down to its base elements. Characters. We only really know the narrator. All the other characters serve as informants. Therefore, it's easier to become enthralled with the story, as we only need to keep track and remember what one character does. This also makes it easier from a writer's standpoint. You can focus all of the action and reaction on one person, rather than having to think about how each character will react to a situation. Plot. Good old-fashioned conspiracy theory that mixes some very interesting paranormal aspects into it. Rather than just being big corporation hiding things, we get big corporation hiding things that defy reality. And before you spew in the comments that it's like SCP, thank you for the unoriginality. my hatred for you and the fandom only grows stronger. Themes. Implications. This story doesn't tell us everything that happens with each Corruptus or how truly wide-reaching it is. We only know as much as the narrator does, which leaves it up to us to imagine what else is out there. The implications that there are these reality-defying entities lets our mind wander and fill in the scary reach of these issues ourselves.